When the sun's out, it's hard to remember that this is part of England, a beautiful semi-tropical island paradise where the seas are unpolluted and rare and exotic plants thrive in the frost-free climate. But for the people who live on the remote Isles of Scilly, 30 miles off the western tip of Cornwall, it can be a very tough way of life. The last year on Scilly's been one of the most turbulent in recent history. Bad weather ruined much of the vital summer season. And the news that 4 island men trying to row home from New York nearly drowned in an Atlantic storm traumatised a community where everyone knows everyone else.
Those of you who've heard the news that the Scilly boys who were rowing from New York back to Scilly, their boat capsized, and what exactly happened out there in the Atlantic?
Now the islands are unexpectedly losing their much-loved Methodist minister.
Lord God, as we meet together this evening within these 4 walls...
The Reverend David Easton and his boss, the Reverend Steve Wilde, assumed David would be asked to stay on when his job came up for review. But voting at a secret meeting of a small group of church representatives didn't go David's way.
We're often troubled, but not crushed. And though badly hurt at times, we are not destroyed.
Faced with so much uncertainty, these are hard times, even by Scilly standards. And as the new year approaches, there can't be a single islander who isn't viewing the future without a certain degree of trepidation. For nearly 7 years, the people of the Isles of Scilly have been cared for by their minister, David Easton, who lives alone on St Mary's and spends his life addressing the needs of his far-flung congregation. It's lonely work at the best of times, but his dedication to the job in such a remote place has earned him the respect and admiration of the vast majority of islanders. So the news he's got to go has stunned most of the locals. What's made things even worse is that under Methodist Church rules, no reason for the decision can ever be publicly given.
The nearest thing I can describe it is to say it's a bit like a bereavement, really, or some sort of sudden loss. And it hurts quite a lot, really.
In the weeks that have followed, David, as always, has been putting the needs of others before his own.
The decision about my appointment caused a lot of hurt and anger and division, not just within the church, but in the wider community. And somehow or other, I have got to try and seek to reconcile people one to another, and that's not an easy thing to do. There's people like you who've got to stay here, and you've got to move on as a church and as a fellowship, and there's people around, and that must be, I think that's more difficult, really.
I know, it's not going to be easy. I'm going to really miss you.
The majority of the congregation wanted you to stay, and I just wish that story would get out for us. It leaves us with a very awkward
There is a
feeling.
division, there is divisions, and I still find it difficult with some of the congregation.
It has
I am going to miss you.
annoyed us, the manner in which it was, your departure was arranged, should we put it that way?
It's easy for me in a way. I'm moving on. The people on Scilly have got to remain here and live with one another in the community and in the church for years to come, and that's the greater challenge, really.
It's a bereavement for us all. Didn't want to see you go. No. And I feel that I'm losing such a good friend, because you're not only our minister, you're a good friend. And I know that if I've got problems, you're always there. It has been hard, and a lot of us are very sorry that you're going, and it upset me very, very much, very much.
And when you do get close to people, when they have to move on, it is, you feel it more, don't you?
I feel it's very, very hard.
We are together in a remote island community. There's nowhere else to go. Yet here together on these group of rocks out in the Atlantic together, and you've got to sink or swim together.
David won't just be packing his bags and leaving the islands. Again, under church rules, he must remain in his post until the start of next summer. It's going to be a very difficult few months ahead for everyone. For the island's only vet, though, the redoubtable Dr. Heike Dawn, things are looking up.
Good girl.
Ever since she arrived here 3 years ago, Heike's been searching for romance, without much luck. Now, in the space of just a few weeks, everything's changed. After a whirlwind courtship, Heike's fallen head over heels in love with fellow islander Alistair McNichol.
Listen, I've got some really, really exciting news.
What's that?
I got engaged the other day, yesterday. Yeah, no, not to Leo, to Heike. Yeah, I know. You know, we haven't set a date or a month or anything. When and where, we don't know. You know, we just need to sit down, as I say, with a cup of tea and think about it. But when you find something like Heike that you're really happy with, you just want to get on with it, don't you?
Alistair wanted an engagement ring that would always remind Heike that he'd proposed to her on the Isles of Scilly.
And I know Heike likes things a little bit different. She doesn't want, like, the big rock from Harrods, you know, so what we've got here, this is made by a local craft artist, and it's all made out of sort of recycled plastics from the buoys that boats are moored to. Now, these are Heike's favourite colours, these sort of greens, aquas, pinks. I think it's something a bit different, something very Slovenian and something original, which I think is what you
Very
wanted.
Slovenian. I don't think you can get it anywhere else.
I don't think so, no.
Quite original, isn't
Very
Yes, it
original,
is.
but I hope you like it. I think you like it,
Yes,
don't
I
you?
do.
Yeah.
There's no other ring like this, so, you know.
But this is a huge thing.
Yes, yeah, I've never been married before. So it's, well, yeah, a completely new...
New ground.
Yeah, new ground proceeding.
Any thoughts yet about dresses?
I have an idea.
Yeah.
Well, I like a medieval dress.
To be married in a medieval dress?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, this is actually quite a splendid, you know, it looks nice.
I think that's a great idea, but what am I going to wear? Sort of a
nice and
suit of armour. Yeah.
The problem is that neither of them has much money to spend on the wedding. The first thing they'll need to do is to sit down and work out exactly what they can afford. 3,000 miles away on the other side of the Atlantic. This is the little fishing community of Branch on the southern tip of Newfoundland. This is the final resting place for the doomed Scilly Boys rowing boat, which was found floating in the sea near here by local fishermen 3 months after the capsize and rescue of the 4 island rowers. One of the rowers, Tim Garrett, has arrived from Scilly to see the boat for himself and to take back to the islands anything worth salvaging. Surprisingly, despite the boat being in the water so long, a number of objects secured in the lockers and bags have survived.
This is the one thing Chris wanted out of everything, out of the entire boat, was this. Yeah. The presents he got for his girls. And that's all he asked for. From anything from the boat was this. Was that I bring these back for him.
Wow, so
for his girls.
It'd be very special for him.
Yeah.
Tim's anxious to find something that he holds especially dear. Just before he left on the voyage, his girlfriend Tash gave him a symbolic gift that they both hoped would last a lifetime. A very expensive watch, which he took off his wrist just before the capsize. There's no sign of it.
A lot of it's just general boat things, unfortunately, not so much personal stuff. There's little bits from the stern cabin with Chris and Joby's stuff, but there's nothing so far of mine and Wayne's at all. I mean, there's loads of spares, there's bits everywhere, but it's not looking that hopeful for things that were in the bow cabin, which is where I was.
Tim also hopes the trip will be cathartic after the terrible drama in mid-Atlantic in which he nearly died. With life revolving around the sea, this remote community has much in common with the Isles of Scilly.
Hi, fellas. How's it going?
Tim is keen to track down Roy, the skipper of the trawler that found the Scilly boys' boat, to thank him for what he's done on behalf of all the islanders. He's also going to have to tell his girlfriend Tash back on Scilly that it looks as if the special watch she gave him has been lost forever. On the Isles of Scilly, earning a living out of season is very hard. One islander who works from dawn to dusk 7 days a week is Nigel, who came to Scilly 7 years ago. Amongst his many jobs, Nigel's the part-time postman on the most southwesterly island, St Agnes.
Hi, post. Hi there, thanks. Right, thanks very much. Cheers. Yeah.
His life here is everything he's ever dreamed of.
It's got to be one of the most spectacular post rounds.
Oh, it's absolutely brilliant. I used to be a postman in the Midlands, and that was 4 o'clock start, and it was, yeah. But here, just it's a beautiful place, and it's just lovely to walk around, and it's always warm and pleasant, even in winter.
Nigel's a keen lobster fisherman, and an eternally optimistic one.
Nothing. Oh well, there's always next time.
And he also runs the Airfare Cafe up at the little airport, where passengers arriving or leaving the islands fight for one of his legendary bacon butties. To do any of his numerous jobs, it's essential that Nigel is fit and able. Although he's reluctant to admit it, he's developed a serious problem with his shoulder, and it's going to get worse. He's been told that without a major operation, he could have to leave Scilly. His partner Carol is worried. How long is he going to be out of action for?
It could be 6 months, 18 months. It depends on the physio and how he responds, really. But I'm expecting it to be no less than 6 months.
These islands are very much his dream.
Oh, gosh, yes, he's part of the island. He just loves it here. You can see it in him. It's his dream.
And if he couldn't function and he had to leave?
It would be awful. How can you walk away from your dream? It would be very hard to go back anywhere other than here.
In the meantime, it's crucial Nigel's able to keep the cafe open and running whilst he's out of action. He's pinning his hopes on the one person who could really help keep his livelihood on Scilly going.
Yeah, I went out snorkelling yesterday.
Oh, you lucky thing.
Sarah was pretty scared.
Oh, but you looked after her.
Yeah, I looked after her.
The problem is that his son, Greg, is 13,000 miles away, travelling the southern hemisphere with his girlfriend, like his veterinary nurse, Sarah. And they don't seem to be in any rush to get home. Back on the Cornish mainland, it's very early morning in the county town of Truro. At a house close by the city centre, one man has already been up for a while.
Thank you very much for the card that you have sent and for your concern for the Reverend Dr. David Easton, my minister on the Isles of Scilly.
This is the Reverend Steve Wilde, the head of the Methodists in Cornwall and David Easton's boss. The response to what's happened on the Isles of Scilly has taken him completely by surprise.
I know that you have said that this is catastrophic on the island. It's been phenomenal. I've been astonished, actually. I thought there would be a reaction, but I didn't anticipate it would be to such an extent. My office, we've been flooded out with letters. People are very, very upset. Well, every one of them's been the same, really. Why? Why? And of course, because of the confidentiality, I can't say why. And there's a lot of hurt. Some of these letters are written out. I mean, there's one old chap who's written, you know, I wanted David to do my funeral. I mean, that's a big thing for somebody to say, and he's ill. My big concern is for David. It was a massive bereavement. It was just like being told your best friend's died. Neither me nor him expected that. We really didn't expect that response. And it was gutting, completely gutting.
Steve decides to clear his diary and make an unscheduled trip across to the islands.
I need to be with him, and I need to be alongside them people, because I'm the chairman of all the Cornish Methodist churches. They're my people, and they're suffering. There's deep wounds here. There's people very, very, very upset. It won't take 5 minutes, but for some people, they'll need this.
Over on the other side of the Atlantic, Scilly Boys rower Tim is continuing his search amongst the Newfoundland villagers for the skipper of the trawler that found their boat. Most of the locals are third or fourth generation Irish immigrants.
Can you see the...
Is it the dark green one?
Just come here, the greenhouse now. Over here,
Yeah.
there's a black truck in the driveway.
With the garage next to it, the same colour?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
Okay. I'm trying to find Roy Careen.
Roy Green.
Yeah. It's his greenhouse there, isn't it?
Yes.
That's as far as I got so far.
At last, Tim finds him.
I'm Tim, part of the crew, one of the lads.
Yeah.
How you doing? All right? Yeah, it's a nice place you live, around here.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I'm from Highland. You're that's you were fine.
Yeah, we've been over the other side.
Roy says one of his crew collected up some of the more valuable objects from the wrecked boat for safekeeping. Amongst them is the one thing Tim had given up on ever seeing again.
Top to bring on.
That's amazing. Thanks. That's all I'm after.
Yeah.
You know, that means a lot to me.
Remarkably, after so many weeks being washed about in the freezing North Atlantic Ocean, Tash's watch is keeping exactly the right time.
I come to Canada just to get it.
Yes, well. Means something, I suppose.
Means everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't believe it. That's my one thing of the only thing I had on the boat, because everything's gone.
Yes, well.
And out of all of it, I wouldn't swap any of it for that.
No, man.
That's enough for me.
Yeah. When you wake up in the night, when you're home, you wake up in the night, you look.
But I look at it any time I look at the time, it'll be a constant reminder of what we went through, and all the shifts and all the rowing and all the everything.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that would stick around for 2.5 months.
No.
In an upturned boat. Yeah.
Still work? Yeah.
Stay there for good now. Get buried in it, I reckon.
Yeah. Constant reminder what you went through.
Yeah. Yeah, the watch knows what happened.
Guaranteed.
Before Tim sets off for home, Roy offers to take the lad from Scilly out on a trip on his trawler. The moment is something of a watershed for Tim. Now is the time to think about his life ahead with Tash and to plan a future together. Back on Scilly, the Reverend Steve Wilde is doing his best to begin the process of reconciliation after the deep divisions caused by David's enforced departure.
Now, friends, this candle has been given to us by Stephen Poxon, the president of the Methodist Conference. He's praying for us through all this as well. And I want to light it and have this lit today in the church. I'd like, please, just to be able to explain a few things to you, and then we'll have any questions that you have. And then the rest of this afternoon, I will be through the door in the vestry. And if anybody would like to come and see me in the vestry to talk about this or for us to pray together, then I'm very open to do that. But we'll begin now with a prayer. Let us pray. Jesus, the light of the world.
Later, he's up at the tiny chapel on the remote northerly island of St. Martin's. He knows the healing process will take a long time.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. You've been marvellous.
There's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain here. People love David very, very much, and there's been people crying. In meetings, people have been crying. I've had letters from atheists saying just what an impression David has made upon them. And that's right, he is an exceptional minister. I just do feel totally powerless, and I feel sad.
Even now, many of the islanders are hoping that there could be some kind of appeal against David's decision, which might allow their minister to remain on the islands. The Isles of Scilly are a very popular place for couples getting married. When the sun's out, you couldn't wish for a more photogenic place. But it's very expensive. Just getting the guests on and off the islands can cost a small fortune. Ever since she was a small girl, Heike's dreamt of how wonderful her own wedding would be. She wants her dress to be unforgettable.
Well, I know that I want a historical gown because I've always wanted that. But not a huge one, you know, like whatever, you know, American huge gown. I don't want that. I'd like maybe a Regency, because it's a high waist and no corset, and it's quite nice.
A bit like Jane Austen's style.
Yeah, and I definitely would like it to have some colour, maybe light blue or grey or beige or something like that. But I don't want to have white. I'm too old to go as a meringue bride.
As a meringue bride?
Meringue bride, yes.
All that white.
Yeah, I'm not 20 anymore.
That's really nice, brilliant.
After the euphoria of getting engaged, part-time photographer Alistair is now beginning to realise what a huge financial commitment he's made.
Actually, that's really nice. Now, if you just hold that a minute.
As well as his admin job with the island's council here at the town hall, he's now stacking the shelves at the shop in Old Town, just around the corner from Heike's house. This is an idyllic place to live, isn't it?
It is. It's a wonderful place.
It's quite tough.
It is. It can be quite tough, yeah. And I think most people that live here, you know, wear more than one hat work-wise. This is a good little local job, and I live just down the road, so I can be here in a couple of minutes. And it's all extra funds for the wedding pot.
Exactly how hard up are you?
Well, things aren't good.
Going through the accounts is not Heike's favourite pastime.
My financial situation is abysmal because I'm heavy, you know, run up heavy debts now.
What is
on
the
my
debt?
business account? It's 6,434.78.
That's the debt.
That's the debt. The animals are quite healthy, which is okay. You know, I wouldn't want them to all be deathly ill. But
it would help.
It would help. I think I'm a pauper. Because, yeah, I haven't been on holiday, I don't buy myself any clothes. Really, I don't spend much money at all. The most money I spend on Sammy, you know.
Because you want a decent wedding, don't you? It's a big day.
Yeah, we want a proper wedding, yeah. I never had one.
The question Heike and Alistair may be forced to address is not how big or grand a wedding they can afford, but whether they can afford any type of wedding at all. Midwinter on the Isles of Scilly can be very grim. Storms render this the most isolated place in the country. There are no passenger ferries, and when the flights are down, the sense of isolation is complete. To keep spirits high, the Christmas holiday is the biggest party of the year, culminating in New Year's Eve. There are very few holidaymakers around, so the locals don't hesitate to let their hair down. Tim is as keen as anyone to put the last year behind him. He's back from Newfoundland in time to share the celebrations with Tash.
Put it in the middle and I'll...
Tim's wasted no time in suggesting they move in together.
How is cohabitation proving so far?
Nightmare.
He's washed up twice.
No, more than that. And I cook all the time.
Oh, Tim.
But
yeah, who is the...
No, there's a deal. There's a deal about... No, there's a deal.
Right,
I cook... No.
All his mates come up to me and go, oh, Tim says you never cook, you never cook.
No, I've never said that. As long as you don't mind cleaning up after me. I make the mess, she tidies up. It's perfect.
Tonight, every islander is expected to don fancy dress. Even the legendary boatman Fraser Hicks and his wife Julie.
How long are you going on?
I'm meant to be a Venetian gondolier.
It's a good look for you, I think, isn't it?
Different to being a Solonian boatman, I suppose.
Just down the road, Nigel's braced himself for the evening with a load of painkillers. And thanks to the recent arrival of someone from the other side of the planet, Nigel's in a particularly good mood tonight. His son Greg is back at last and keen to put to use the beard he's grown on his travels.
Are you cultivating a new look here? This is very unusual.
It is a bit odd, but we'll see what the public thinks.
His girlfriend Sarah is here too.
So is it good to be back after your travels?
It is. It's really nice to be back. It's a bit chilly, but it's nice. It's good to see everybody again and be part of the islands again, and it always feels like home when I come here.
Sarah had hoped to go back to working for Heike as her nurse, but instead she may have to leave the islands and return to the mainland.
I need to earn a living somehow, so don't know. I'd love to stay here, but Heike can't afford to pay me. So.
Is that going to put pressure on you and Greg, do you think, having to go back to the mainland?
The only thing we can do is see how it goes and give it a chance. If you don't try, you don't know, so don't know. I'll have to get out my crystal ball and let you know.
This could leave Greg in quite a dilemma, to follow Sarah to the mainland or stay and look after the cafe for his father. Down the road in the chapel, the Reverend David Easton is saying prayers alone. He's facing a very difficult new year.
As we stand at the eve of a new year, we are between the already and the not yet. We look back with thankfulness for all the road that we have travelled along. And we look forward with faith and hope into the unknown tomorrow. Travel with us and all the people of these islands in this coming year. Happy New Year! May we know your blessing and your guidance. Travel with us, we pray, now and always. Amen.
In the next programme,
Thanks. Cheers.
Nigel prepares to go under the knife in the operation to save his damaged shoulder.
I'm quite surprised how anxious I am, actually. I think half the fear is not knowing what to expect. A lot is at stake, actually.
David's boss, Steve Wilde, is facing a crisis in finding a new minister for the islanders.
This is an extraordinary appointment. Most of our appointments are on the mainland, most of our appointments are very traditional. This is extremely unusual. David has fitted in that like a hand in a glove. He's been perfect at that, but it isn't for everyone.
And it's make or break time for Greg as Sarah drops a bombshell.
There's an opportunity come up at Bristol Zoo to be the veterinary nurse there, and they've offered it to me. Could be a whole year. It could be a whole year at Bristol Zoo. So, what do you think about it all then?
On the Isles of Scilly, the islanders are still reeling from the news that their much-loved minister, the Reverend David Easton, is having to leave.
A lot of us are very sorry that you're going, and it upset me very, very much. Very much.
The majority of the congregation wanted you to stay. I just wish that story would get out.
Up at the Airfare Cafe, Nigel's future on Scilly is under threat from his health. He needs a major operation on his shoulder, and his partner Carol fears for the future of their idyllic life on the island.
He just loves it here. You can see it in him. It's his dream. It'd be very hard to go back anywhere other than here.
And Nigel's son Greg is back from his travels in the South Pacific. But his girlfriend Sarah fears she'll have to leave Scilly to look for work on the mainland.
I'd love to stay here, but Heike can't afford to pay me, so don't know. I'll have to get out my crystal ball and let you know.